Welcome, everyone. My name's Ingemar Hunnings. I am a solicitor. I qualified in 1992, and I'm giving this free webinar on the SQE, qualifying work experience, exemptions, and such like, hoping that this will be of assistance to you. So a little bit of a background about me, first of all, then I'll talk about what we do before we go into the detail of of the SQE and those things which I was mentioning. As I said, my name is Ingemar Hunnings. I'm a solicitor regulated by the SRA, qualified in 1992. I was in private practice for 24 years in a solicitor's firm in the Midlands of England. I was an equity partner, that means part owner of the business, for 14 years. I was a head of department of 60 litigators, sat on the management board. So that's my background. Now, I will be sharing my screen as I'm going through this to illustrate and assist with what I'm explaining. And as I mentioned before, if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll work through that in a Q&A after I finish speaking. So I run a management consultancy now. I'm no longer in private practice. The management consultancy is called Hunnings Consultancy, HCL. What we do is we help law firms with the business of running their business. Mostly law firms, other businesses within the legal sector, and one or two outside in other professional services sectors as well. The work we do divides into three sectors. So the compliance support, a lot of compliance support right across the SRA, regulated sector, SRA councils, code of conduct, transparency rules, anti-money laundering, sanctions, data protection. We have our own data protection officers who we hire into organizations by the hour for how many hours they're needed per month, let's say as an external OPN or other data protection support and such. So a lot of compliance support. We have about 700 law firm clients. We also work with case management systems like Leap and Proclaim. And then the third sort of sector, if you can divide it into those sections, is the work that we do to support people who want to qualify as solicitors of England and Wales, both through acting as external confirming solicitors and also quite a lot of help for people who are foreign qualified. They're already qualified as lawyers, and then through the labyrinth of applying for exemption from SQE 2. So I will talk later on exemptions and the assistance that we can give with that. Here we go. There's the firm. There's the compliance services. Okay. And the consulting services and here we go. There's the stuff to do with the SQE. Now then, how did I get involved with the SQE? And then going on to what it is. One of our client firms is a firm of paralegals. The owner of that business was asking me, look, I want to qualify as a solicitor. There's no solicitor in my business. Can you help me? Because this new SQE thing seems to allow me to reach out to an external confirming solicitor to confirm my qualifying work experience. So I checked very closely with the SRA. This was the summer of 2020. So before even the SQE had come in, I was working closely with the SRA to work out how I could do this to help my client out. And so I've developed a process for doing this, and I've helped over 60 people now by confirming their qualifying work experience as an external confirming solicitor. The majority of that work is overseas. About 55-60% is overseas. The rest is in England and Wales. And the SRA are fully aware of what we're doing. They'd even been on our website and asked us to change a couple of words on something. And they've asked us for feedback on what we've learned because we've got eyes on what's going on, let's say, for example, overseas, and that sort of thing. So what is the SQE? The SQE stands for Solicitors Qualifying Exam, and it is replacing the old route, the LPC. The LPC is in transition to finish now. SQE came in September 2021. So it's the SRA's method for people to be able to qualify as solicitors of England and Wales. It's replacing the LPC. Someone qualifying through the SQE route is equally qualified as someone who's qualified through the LPC route. Okay. Changes then with regard to this, you can see the four elements here. It does away with the requirement for a training contract. Okay. which has been a big problem going in the past. Somewhere between 20 and 40% of people who passed their LPC were unable to obtain training contracts. So that's a huge waste of time, talent, and money. The QWE, which you see here, is quite different. Okay. There's also no requirement for GDL to transfer across from a degree in a different subject, not required at all. It was required under the LPC, but you could do a history degree and then go forward through to qualify as a solicitor without taking any converter course. Now, some of the training providers recommend that. I've heard the BPP insist on it. It's not a requirement of the SRA. With the SQE, the SRA is taking back ownership and responsibility for who is fit to be a solicitor. So instead of having other training providers and solicitors firms effectively signing them off after the training contract, the SRA decides whether you are fit to practice. So these are the 4 elements to qualify under the SQE. You have to have a degree or degree equivalent, not a law degree. They're opening the door to people getting through to being a solicitor through other methods. And there's a lot of comparative work that they need to do. I'll come back to this in a moment. They need to pass the 2 exams, the SQE1 and the SQE2. Okay. SQE2 is the end of process. The level at which you're being examined there is as of a newly qualified solicitor. So different level and standard to what it was for the LPC. You have to have 2 years full-time equivalent qualifying work experience confirmed to the SRA by an SRA regulated solicitor. Okay, I'll come back to that. And then there's the usual bit at the end of being of good character, DBS checks and all that sort of stuff, which is directly between you and the SRA. Degree. So let's look into that. By the way, on our website, there's masses of information on this. You can search for things in here as I've done to get this. Okay. Validating your degree. There is information on this on the SRA website. I've just digested it a bit to make it a little bit more understandable, I hope. If you haven't got a degree or a degree, let's say in the UK, and you can always check through your My SRA profile on the SRA website, but this is a way of validating it. You can see here there's information through these intermediaries, ENIC and such like, to validate your degree. There's a small fee to be paid, but the comparative work is done there as to whether what you've done is going to be accepted as a valid degree. The links to this, if you go to the website, hunningsconsultancy.co.uk, and search degree, you'll find that in there. Anyway, what is the SQE exam? Okay, there are 2 exams, SQE1 and SQE2. You cannot apply to sit SQE2 until you pass SQE1. SQE1 is testing you on your legal knowledge, okay, your knowledge of English and Welsh law. It is 2 exams made up of FLK1 and FLK2, which is, I think, functioning legal knowledge. And they are 180 multiple choice questions each, 10 hours of exam time. They're sat in the Pearson VUE test centres in the UK and abroad. And it's tough. Of the people who sit exams at the SQE1, roughly about 55% pass. Part of it is tough, but it's time-wise. You've really got to be fairly quick fire in answering to get through all the questions. And the questions are very granular. In this property transaction, which part of which 4 would you fill in? And usually there's 2 answers that could be right. Now, I've not sat the exam. I'm not a trainer for the examining and such, but this is what's been reported back to me. And these are the areas which it covers. Before anyone asks, no, it doesn't include family law. I've asked the SRA why. They've not replied. It seems bizarre to me, but it is what it is. Now, as far as exams and such, if I just go into here, there is an information page which I have on the website where I listed all of the training providers that I can find with a bit of information about them, an indicative idea of the cost, but please do check with NDirect, and a link to their website. It's just perhaps a resource to save you having to trawl the internet and perhaps missing options which are out there. If you're not on the process yet, haven't signed up with anyone, these might be of some help to you. Okay, SQE1, there we go. You can resit. I'm not going to go through the information on resits and such. You can resit one of the SQE1 exams, as in FLK1 or FLK2, a few times, I think, before you have to resit the whole lot. An idea here of the pricing. it is what it is. SQE2, as I said, is end of process, where they are testing you as if you were a newly qualified solicitor. 16 written and oral tests, totaling 14 hours of exam time. They're real life scenarios, and 12 of them are written, 4 are oral. Now, for these, currently, you do have to still travel to the UK to sit these. And I think the test centres are Manchester, Cardiff, and London. And they're testing you not only on your knowledge, but how you operate in those real life scenarios. So the soft skills as well. They want to look at you and say, are you fit to be let loose on the public, basically? Now, all the people who sit the SQE2, roughly about 77% pass. Good luck with those. Now then, let's move on to that third element that we were talking about, the qualifying work experience. That causes a lot of confusion. And so let me try and dispel some of that confusion. You need to have 2 years full-time equivalent qualifying work experience confirmed to the SRA by an SRA-regulated solicitor. For many people, you will have an SRA-regulated solicitor in your organization. Go and ask them, and they should help you. The SRA are very interested to know of solicitors that they regulate who refuse to confirm someone's qualifying work experience without good reason. And it's got to be a really good reason. And they said that if the aspiring solicitor is finding that they're meeting resistance to having their QWE confirmed, they have every right to go to SRA ethics, who want to know or get involved. And ultimately, it could be a disciplinary issue for the solicitor concerned. Okay. Some of you have seen me ranting about this on LinkedIn when I come across people whose solicitors in their firm are refusing to confirm their qualifying work experience. And I've suggested options for them, but yeah, it's an abuse of the position of the solicitor. They should not do that. So qualifying work experience. So what is full-time? Because it's 2 years full-time equivalent. The SRA doesn't define that. So they've left it to the judgment of the confirming solicitor. When I'm doing confirmation as an external confirming solicitor, my view is that full-time is 30 to 35 hours plus a week. And then it becomes a question of maths. But that's only relevant if I'm confirming your qualifying work experience. If someone else is doing it, it's their judgment, because they would have to justify that to the SRA. Okay. So what is qualifying work experience? The SRA has defined it as the provision of legal services. And they've not gone a lot further in defining it than that. But they have said that it does not need to be done in a law firm. It does not need to be done in English or Welsh law. It does not need to be done in England and Wales. And it can be voluntary, as in unpaid. And you can reach back in time as far as you want for your qualifying work experience. And yes, it can be done abroad. That's not a problem. I was asked about that only a couple of days ago. It can be done in a foreign law firm. Yes. But there are many other ways that legal services are delivered. For example, you could be working as a paralegal in a company in the UK or abroad. Many of the people whose QWE I've confirmed have indeed been working in-house legal counsel, that sort of thing, working in charities, and some people working in the UN, citizens' advice, will writing companies, in OISC regulated immigration firms, all sorts of things like that. So the qualifying work experience, as I said, it can be confirmed by solicitors in your organization if that's relevant. Now, I have put on here in our blog guidance on how to confirm qualifying work experience. So if you're in a situation where your solicitor doesn't know how to do it, send them here, just guidance here. So that's just a resource as to the process for confirming the qualifying work experience. Is very simple, very easy for them. As I said, for those people who don't have a solicitor in their organization, I offer a service to do confirmation of qualifying work experience. The SRA require anyone who's an external confirming solicitor to do more than an internal, because of course you haven't been working in my law firm. I've not seen you working. I've not seen your work. So they require me to get feedback from the supervisor and also to go through and see your work. There's more information and detail about that, which normally what I would do is organize a free, no obligation Zoom to go through, part of which is me assessing whether it's appropriate at all for me to be involved. So if that's of interest to you or might be for someone else, then come back to me outside of this webinar and we can have a chat with regard to that. Okay, we've been looking at qualifying work experience. Now then, something else that I want to make you aware of, this is only relevant to people working in England, Wales as well, I think, although it's slightly different there, because it's funded by the UK taxpayer. The SRA has been very careful to make sure that the SQE fits within the UK government's apprenticeship scheme. Scotland is different, so it's England and Wales that's the main thing here, and definitely England. Okay, now the thing with this is that the SQE, if your employer decides they want to put you on as a graduate apprentice, so you get credit, so it's not the full 7 years, but you get credit for the years of your degree. So you can be put in as an apprentice, as a graduate apprentice for your SQE. Okay, now, benefit to you is that if they do that, the apprenticeship scheme will pay for your tuition fees and your exam fees, which is massively beneficial to you, saving you thousands of pounds. Okay. Many law firms are not aware of this. Again, feel free to direct them through to this page on our website where I've put as much information as I've been able to gather on this. The apprenticeship scheme people are very, very helpful. There we go. Apprenticeship support service open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. UK time, of course. It's only relevant to people living in England and I think also Wales, but it's massively helpful. The law firm doesn't need to do all the research. They will be taken through it by the hand by either the University of Law or BPP. I had a contact with the University of Law, who is the person to talk to in regard to apprenticeships. Just making that you're aware of that because it can help you hugely financially with regard to that. So that's apprenticeships. Again, only relevant for people who are working in England, and I think Wales as well. For those of you who are in Scotland, Ireland, or further afield, sorry, that's the UK thing. Okay, that's explaining about the SQE, how it works with a little bit of extra stuff on the qualifying work experience. And I anticipate lots of questions of, I'm doing this, would it be QWE? And I'll go through those questions in the chat when they come up. I'll give my view as if I was confirming solicitor on that. It will, of course, be the view of the confirming solicitor who is actually doing the count. Now then, let's start talking about exemptions from these exams, because I know there's lots of people who are really keen to know about that. If you've passed your LPC, you can apply for exemption from the SQE1. Okay, doesn't matter how long ago it was that you passed it, it seems, but you can apply for exemption from the SQE1 exam. You can do that through your MySRA profile. Okay, so that's the LPC side of things. Now, if you are already qualified as a lawyer, which people normally refer to as foreign qualified lawyers, but it's not just foreign qualified lawyers. So I've learned recently that if you are qualified as a notary, that will count. So that's within the UK. If you're a barrister so you passed your pupillage, then you would be regarded as a qualified lawyer as well. And some Silex, I think it's a fellow, would also be regarded as fully qualified. So it's not just foreign qualified lawyers, but that's the short way of mentioning it. You guys it's open to you to apply for exemption from the SQE2 exam. Now, I end up fielding a lot of questions on this, so I've built up a fair bit of knowledge. Please, I'm not the SRA. Ultimately, they make the decisions on this, but I'm just sharing what knowledge I have in the hope that this will be of help to you. From what I hear, the SRA are not keen on granting exemptions for both the SQE1 and the SQE2, and I follow the logic of that. And I have had people reporting to me that they've got exemption from SQE1, and then they've applied for exemption from SQE2, and they've had the exemption from the SQE1 revoked. So just bear that in mind. Let's look at the mechanics. Okay, again, this is a page on our website. It's actually going from let's try and move this up out of the way, services, compliance services. No, it's not compliance, sorry, it's consulting services. But we've got, as you may have seen before, SQE2 exemptions. Okay, so I've tried to put all the information up here to help you, but some people ask us for more. hand-holding, checking over stuff, in which case, yeah, at that point, I will make a nominal fee, charge for it and such. So let's go through what the mechanism is. There is a form that you would fill in. So I'm actually going to open this form up so you want to see it on the page and take you through it just to help you with this. Here we go. Obviously, it's on the SRA website. I just put it up here as well to help you. It's a Word document, right? What I've got here is a Word document. Okay. Now, it's a long document. You don't need to fill it all in. It depends what you're looking for. For everyone, you need to fill in sections 1, which is who you are, section 2, as to what your current qualification allows you to do. And the SRA are looking at the comparison between a solicitor here and what your qualification allows you to do. Ethics and what you're asking for. Okay, SQE 1, SQE 2. Section 5 and Section 6 are very long, lots of detailed information. We don't get involved with helping with people with this. This is how you would apply for exemption from SQE 1. Good luck. Okay. The SRA will take half a year to look at it all, charge you, it's £265 or something. And I don't know how successful people are, but frankly, I wouldn't bother. I'd sit the exam. If you want to apply for exemption from SQE 2, and this is for unqualified lawyers, or if you're qualified as a lawyer anywhere, you would fill in sections 1 to 4. Section 7, you would fill in one of the options on here. Okay. If 7A is it's all about having 2 years of experience providing legal services, professional legal work experience. They don't give any particular definition of that, but that's what it is. Okay. If that's a requirement of you qualifying, which I think is the case in South Africa, like the old LPC route, then just tick that, job done. Okay. And I say job done. Let me just go back to section 2. This is conditional upon you being able to say yes, that your qualification enables you to do all those things. If it doesn't, you'll need to fill in section 8, and we'll come back to that. And there's some stuff that's specific about that for people who qualified in jurisdictions which used to be part of the Soviet Union. So we'll come to that. Okay, so foreign qualified lawyers and other lawyers, we're in section 7. Assuming you can say yes, your qualification enables you to do all those things listed in section 2, then 7A, if you are required as part of your qualification to have 2 years professional legal work experience, like I was saying in South Africa, tick that, job done, send in the application with the money, and they should grant your exemption. 7B is if the 2 years work experience was completed after qualification, in which case you will need to, for each period, so it could be one placement or it could be more than one, but for each of those placements, you will need to have a referee who writes a letter of reference. Okay, and there are certain things that needs to be in that letter of reference. And you'll need to also obtain a certificate of good standing for yourself from your regulatory body, and from theirs, if they're solicitors. If they're not solicitors, remember this is your supervisor. Your referee has to be a supervisor who knows your work, has seen your work, has supervised you. They don't have to be a lawyer. They're another professional. Then ideally some sort of proof of that. If not, then some explanation as to why they were suitably qualified to be your supervisor. Okay, so a bit technical, but that's the sort of stuff. It's set out on that page on our website. Of course, it's in the SRA website. 7C is a mixture of those. So maybe you had 6 months as part of your qualification and then a year and a half post-qualification. So that's what 7C is. It'll need the same requirements for the post-qualification, and 7B has. Now, if you're qualified, but your qualification doesn't give you the ability to say, yes, you can do all of these things, you're looking at section 8 instead. So in that circumstance, we're looking at exemption from SQE 2. You don't fit in 5, you don't fit in 6, you don't fit in 7. Instead, it's section 8 that you're fitting in. Here we go. So this is for people who have less than 2 years or people who don't meet those requirements. Okay. My personal view is that if you've got less than 2 years, you might as well do your 2 years and then fit in the appropriate bit of section 7. If, however, your qualification doesn't give you the ability to say yes to all of those practice areas in section 2 of this form, then you're left having to fill this in. Now, this is very detailed. You're going to have to put in examples and evidence of the skills that you meet and map it into the reference letter that your supervisor, your referee is writing. So it's a big, onerous job, not something we help with. Now, I mentioned I was going to talk about those people who are qualified in jurisdictions which are ex-Soviet, Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Azerbaijan, etc., where you have 2 levels of qualification. You qualify, if you pass your law degree, then you go practice as a lawyer, as I understand it. And you can do most of the stuff. However, it doesn't give you all of the things listed in section 2. You do get that if you then take a further exam and become an advocate. So if you just have a degree, then that may not be enough, and you may have to fit in section 8 to make that application. And I'm just looking on here. Yes, there's an article on this. Belarus is another one in there. I put up here what they've said. And this is the SRA. I think it's probably even a quote. Yeah, it's a quote for them. Anyone who's passed their law degree can practice law. And then the other people are the advocates. Okay. And anyone who's passed their law degree, I don't think gets all of the rights that you get if you're an advocate. So just to bring that to your attention, it is quite specific. Yeah, and this from Simon Pryor, who's the person who heads up dealing with the SQE2 exemption applications. Okay, so that's quite detailed. I hope that helps the foreign qualified lawyers who are in here. MCT. Okay, MCT. When I first got questions on this, I thought, what on earth is this? This is all about the QLTS scheme that used to be the way under the LPC route for foreign qualified lawyers to cross-qualify. Okay, that was brought to an end when the SRA brought in the SQE. Personally, I think they might have forgotten about it because there seems to be a bit of a jumble. Anyway, it's quite clear what they're saying now. The QLTS has 2 parts to it, the MCT and the OSCE. I'm contacted by quite a few people who passed the MCT but have not passed the OSCE. They cannot now sit the OSCE, so they're in limbo. And just clarifying this, there is stuff now on the SRA website, but it's still a little confusing. So just to say, there are 2 routes open to you. One is the transitional route. The other is just follow the normal SQE route. Now, the transitional route is coming to an end. And by that, you must apply for admission by 31st of March 2024. So in summary, the transitional route is you can, if you are taking that route, have the MCT credited to give you exemption from SQE1, but you will have to sit the SQE2 and pass it, meet the other requirements, and apply for admission by the 31st of March 2024. So there's not many sittings of the SQE2 left, so time is running out. That door will slam, and there will just be the other route, which is that you sit and take the SQE1 and apply, if you wish to, for exemption from SQE2, as if you've never sat the QLTS exams. And I've gone back and checked with them twice since I got this information, and they've confirmed it to me twice. So that is the situation for those people who are caught with having passed the MCT, but not having yet passed the OSCE. So I hope that makes that clear for you guys. So just to recap, we've gone through explaining what the SQE involves. So we're just joining, having missed everything I've said. For you, there will eventually be a recording on Zoom, which I can send out to you. So you can then listen to what I just missed. For everyone, where is it here? We do have a YouTube channel. You might want to just check that out. On here, we have lots of videos. We have videos of past webinars that I've on this subject, which I've done, and also Q&As as well, chopped up in here. So by all means, go and visit that, listen through to the questions. If I could, please ask you to subscribe. It'll push up the subscription numbers. It's quite new for us. This is but there are loads of videos and more going on all the time. Yeah, little plug for that. Okay, just to recap, the SQE has these 4 elements. It's a complete replacement for the LPC. The LPC is on the way out. If you wanted to start a degree now, you could not pursue through to the LPC route. It's on its way out. Okay, the SQE is different. You've got the degree, doesn't have to be a law degree. You've got to pass the 2 exams. You need to have 2 years full-time equivalent qualifying work experience confirmed to the SRA by an SRA regulated solicitor, and obviously good character stuff at the end of it with the SRA direct. We looked at in more detail what QWE is. We've also gone through exemptions. I'm now going to move to the Q&A session, and I'm going to work my way through the questions on here. Okay, here we go. And I'll work from the top down. If you want to add more in at the bottom, that's fine. Hello. Right. Okay. Thank you for the webinar. Would company secretary experience be regarded as QWE? I knew there'd be loads of questions about QWE. Potentially. What I do when I'm looking at this is I need to work out exactly what you're doing. The SRA doesn't care about the description of the role. They want to know the substance of what you're doing. So the SRA has given this definition of the provision of legal services. So I would need probably in a separate free no obligation Zoom to go through with you to check what you're doing. If it's purely administrative, it might be the provision of administrative services, which wouldn't be the provision of legal services. However, if it is going to involve the drafting of legal documents, legal research, referring back to legislation and such, it could well be giving legal advice to the company and those things. It could well be. So there are people who have done elements of this, governance, and certainly compliance, like anti-money laundering legislation, data protection legislation, and the application of that within the company. That, I think, is the provision of legal services. I've just got to be careful, because it could be that you're just doing administrative stuff. So someone asked me, he was a conflicts consultant. I thought, what on earth is that? It turned out he was doing conflict checks. Well, that's important. It's commercial. It's administrative. It's not actual application of any law, particularly in there. So I hope that clarifies that for you, TKM. Okay. Kerry Ann, do sole practitioners have difficulty getting SQE2 exemption? Potentially, yes, because if they don't have a supervisor, then the SRA will say, sorry, no supervisor. You can't get a letter of reference from your supervisor to accompany your application for exemption from SQE2. Therefore, you have to sit the exam. Their default is always to sit the exam. Now, I remember the case of someone who asked me, he was qualified as in the New York bar. After having qualified, he then was like a freelance lawyer. I think when he spoke to me, he was working in Turkey. He'd never had a supervisor afterwards. So he couldn't have someone who could act as a referee who'd supervised him for 2 years post-qualification legal work experience. He had to sit the exam. That was the message to him. It's not an exclusion on its own. It's whether you have someone who supervises you. Now, you could have someone who mentors you and therefore has detailed knowledge of your work and can meet the requirements. So per se, sole practitioners, no, but there is that evidential problem there. I hope, Kerry Ann, that helps. That's SQE2 exemption. QWE would be different, but I'm not being asked. Okay, Ben Cooper. Is the full-time role of client coordinator at a law firm likely to be classed as QWE, qualifying work experience? You know what client coordinator is, to be honest. Is it the provision of legal services? Are you drafting legal documents? Are you advising on the law, doing what like a caseworker on a legal case would be doing? I would need to know this in more detail than we can deal with within this public webinar then. So could be, it couldn't be. I just don't know what client coordinator actually does. Okay. Well, by the way, we're talking about names. One person, when I've seen a couple of people ask, can you, as someone going through the route to qualify as a solicitor under the SQE, can they be called a trainee? You can call them what you want. It doesn't mean what it means under the LPC. You can call them sky blue pink. it's not a problem. Okay. Often people are called aspiring solicitor. It seems to have settled on that sort of name as far as I can see. Okay, Christina, can a business support role that primarily works in legal services be counted as QWE? It could be. It goes back again to this question of, is the work the provision of legal services? If you're dealing with legislation, if you're dealing with the interpretation and application of legislation, giving legal advice, drafting legal documents, those sorts of things, yes. If it's primarily administrative, probably no, because it's not the provision of legal services, it's the provision of administrative services in those circumstances. So again, it goes back to having a discussion with the confirming solicitor for them to form a judgment as to whether it falls within that definition. So it's very specific. Again, the SRA isn't interested in the title. It's about the substance. Okay. Lydia, I'm a foreign qualified lawyer. Do I need QWE? Very good point. I don't think I covered that. No. Foreign qualified lawyers or people who are qualified already as a lawyer are automatically exempt from the requirement for QWE. Full stop. That's just it. Okay. Short and sweet, Lydia, but that's the answer. No, you don't. Of course, to apply for the exemption from SQE2, you do need to have 2 years of legal work experience, but that's not the same as QWE. And I talked about that earlier. Jack Sullivan. Hi, Ingemar. I've been working part-time as a litigation paralegal for almost 2 years. Typically, I work 21 hours a week, 3 days. Some months, so there's a bit of a maths calculation there. I think some months, the hours I work are more, sometimes less. I was peaked and troughed around my SQE exams. In your opinion, is there any way this part-time work could count as SQWE? Absolutely, certainly. There's nothing preventing part-time work being QWE. And indeed, the SRA has specifically covered this because it says full-time equivalent. So it then becomes a question of maths, adding it up to a full-time equivalent. If someone works 2.5 days a week, then that's probably going to take them 4 years to get 2 years full-time equivalent. It's down to the judgment of the confirming solicitor. If they're in your organization, they will know and they will be able to form a judgment when they're confirming your QWE to the SRA. If it's an external confirming solicitor like me, I will be required to speak with your supervisor. And one of the things I will check is that your estimation of your full-time equivalent feels about right to know. So let's say you're working part-time as a in-house legal paralegal in a company in Bahrain, just picking a country at random. I will need to speak to your supervisor, who won't be a solicitor, because otherwise I won't be involved, may not even be a lawyer. But I would ask, given my view as what full-time is, does this sound about right? And the SRA require me to confirm, when I'm confirming your QWE, that I had got feedback from the supervisor. And I guess this is because they're checking. I hope that helps you, Jack. I'm not gone to the question of whether that is qualifying work experience, because that's a different question. But as far as it being part-time to full-time equivalent, it's a question of maths. Okay. So I hope that helps, Jack. Vipin. Hi, Ingemar. Thank you for your insights. Do you have any statistics pointing to the probability of getting SQE1 exemption? The answer is I don't. We don't help with people getting SQE1 exemptions. If you pass the LPC, there's no reason. You just go through your MySRA portal, and I believe it's pretty instantaneous. No problem. It's automatic, more or less, that you get your exemption. Filling in that form to make the application, I don't know. I have no statistics, no empirical research. We don't help with it. I think it's tough for anyone to get that. It's a huge job. You've got a huge dossier of paperwork that you'll need to put together. It's very similar to the equivalent means method, which principally I think of as being under the LPC route. And that's as much as I can tell you, I'm afraid, with regard to applying for exemption from SQE1. Sorry. Maria. Ingemar, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much. I would love your thoughts and advice on how the transition to the SQE has affected the hiring requirement for foreign qualified lawyers compared to the previous GDL requirement, and how are firms adapting and responding. I don't, again, have any empirical research on this. We're not a recruitment company, and I can't speak with any particular authority. Lawyers are traditionally very resistant to change. They don't like change. New stuff they're suspicious of. They're very risk averse at innovation and such like they don't like. I think that's in their nature normally. There has been resistance. People have been surprised at how tough the exams are. People who are just working in a law firm, they're not up to date with the changes. I know that because I keep speaking to our client base and they go, oh, I didn't know about that. Apart from the fact I've mentioned it so many times in our newsletter, but they still don't know it. I suppose if you're doing your work as a solicitor or a lawyer, you're focusing on that, not how other people are climbing up the ladder. So I think and I expect that it will be affecting people's hiring over the next 12 to 18 months. And it's going to be like a tsunami. They need to acquire new talent and they're going to find it's all different. And they're going to go, oh gosh, what's all this stuff? You guys are pushing and asking them to confirm QWE or appearing, oh, I went through the SQE route. There's going to be volume, which is just going to force them to have to listen because they're going to find less and less people applying for the training contracts under the LPC, which will be a shock to them because it's always been oversubscribed. There's going to be less and less people left who could do that. And they're going to be going, oh gosh, what do we do now? So I'm sorry, I'm talking around the subject because I don't have any research on this. But if you think there are thousands sitting each year now, the SQE exams, they're qualifying all the time. Yeah, it's going to happen. Good things you don't have to do a GDL under the SQE route. Your degree, wherever it was, will be fine. And you just need to sit and pass what SQE exams you need to sit and pass. I think that's about Maria. Yeah. And I don't know any empirical research on this. The SRA would be very interested, but I guess they'll need to publish that. Catherine, hi Ingemar. I am a legal business affairs director in a media company in the UK. I handle all the contract negotiations for my division. I passed the LPC, understand that I would have the SQE1 exemption. Would I still need to apply to sit the SQE2, or could I still apply for an exemption through these means just by proving the QWE, or would my company be best structured like a training contract in order to qualify without paying to take the exams? If I did have to take the exams, would the business still be able to apply for an apprentice scheme given my job or title? Sorry, I'm going to have to go back and digest that short, snappy question. Hey, Catherine, I don't think you're qualified as a lawyer already. You're doing, looks like, in-house legal stuff. You passed your LPC, so yes, you can get the SQE1 exemption. If you're not qualified as a lawyer already, you can't apply for the SQE2 exemption. Yes, you would have to sit that. If you're not already qualified as a lawyer, you're not exempt from the QWE. So yes, you would need to get that confirmed by an SRA regulated solicitor, which you can do before or after you sit exams. Entirely up to you. I didn't mention that before. You can get it when you want. As far as applying, getting them to put you on as an apprentice, the best thing I think is to have a chat with the apprentice support service. But I think that would really only work if you were sitting the SQE 1 and 2. I'm not entirely sure. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards and I could put you in touch with the person I know at the University of Law who can answer that question, because I'm sure they would have dealt with that themselves specifically. But my suspicion is that it would be someone sitting both the SQE1 and the SQE2. Of course, there's no reason why you couldn't ask your employers to sub you to study for the SQE2 and the exam for the SQE2. I think that answers all the questions you put to me. Ahmed, hi Ingemar. Sorry, I had been in the meeting. That's why I joined late. Could you please share the recording with me? Okay. I will make a note. It will be on YouTube, as I mentioned. Just make a note of your name. I do understand that people are working and sometimes meetings overrun. And Nana, if working part-time, example 20 hours a week, how many years will I need for a QWE? Thank you in advance. Okay. The SRA has said that you need 2 years full-time equivalent qualifying work experience to be confirmed. Okay. Full-time equivalent. So it's fine to be working part-time. It then becomes a question of maths. What full-time is will be defined by the solicitor who you're asking to do the confirmation. I've given you my view, which is that full-time is 30 to 35 hours a week, plus. So that would be, if it was me doing the confirmation, 20 hours would be about 2/3. So you would need to do, my maths is right, 3 years to get 2 years full-time equivalent. So it really is a question of maths for anyone who's doing part-time QWE. Now, sometimes I've got people who've got split roles, and their role is, let's say, 50% provision of legal services, 50% administrative, in which case, then it might be they need 4 years work to get 2 years full-time QWE equivalent. So bear that in mind. Now, I'm fairly relaxed about being sensible about this. So it's 80% QWE and 20% the supporting admin for that's fine. But 50-50, no, we need to actually look at that as 50-50. 20 hours a week, my guess from what you're saying, assuming it is QWE, which I don't know, but that would be 3 years to get you 2 years full-time equivalent or thereabouts. So it could be a bit more, but hey. Kerry Ann, thank you very much. I have had a supervisor in the first 4 years of practice and then branched off on my own. So I can't remember, Kerry Ann, if you're a foreign qualified lawyer and you're applying for exemptions from SQE 2, then that's fine. 4 years of legal practice, let's say, after you've qualified in your jurisdiction, that would be fine because you have a supervisor. What you will need to do is reach out to that supervisor to probably draft for them their letter of reference, making sure it meets the criteria which the SRA said. I've got a guidance note on the page on our website where you can go and make sure those things are in there. If you're no longer in touch with the supervisor and can't find them, then you might have a problem. But if you are in touch with them, you've got someone who can do that, that's great. Okay, next question. Okay, there's lots of thanks coming in. Ahmed, I work as an advisor for the Citizens Advice. Can this count as QWE? For those people who don't know, Citizens Advice is a charity. Each one is a local charity, and they help citizens, which is in the UK, with providing advice on various different things, which could be legal, it could be debt counseling, it could be financial problems, navigating through social security, immigration, family troubles, all sorts, but it's free to the public. So could your work as an advisor for the Citizens Advice count as QWE? Yes, it could. I have recently confirmed the qualifying work experience for someone who's been working for the Citizens Advice as an immigration advisor. So they're working with the law around immigration and applications for it. Yes, that would count. It very much depends, Ahmed, on the nature of the work you're doing. So if you were working as a debt counselor, advisor for the Citizen Advice, I would say no, because you're not applying any law there. You're providing financial services, not legal services. The provision of legal services is the definition of qualifying work experience. So this is why the confirming solicitor needs to analyze what the nature of the work actually was. If you were, however, providing advice on housing law, social security benefit law, immigration law, just to take 3 examples there, landlord and tenant is another, help you then through the litigation process and such, then I'm likely to say, yes, I think it is the provision of legal services and it would count as QWE. So one needs to carry out an analysis of the nature of the work to see whether it fits the definition, because I, as a solicitor regulated by the SRA, need to be careful of my duties to them to make sure that I'm as honest and as careful and as straight as I possibly can. I hope that's of help. Advocate Cora, I have done my master's in law and also an LLB. Brilliant, well done. Been practicing as an advocate in the High Court of India for more than 3 years. How can I get an exemption for QWE? You've got it automatically. You're qualified as a lawyer in another jurisdiction. You are automatically exempt from QWE. You don't need to do anything. It happens because you're already qualified. Okay, so then it's a question of applying for your exemption from the SQE2. I know you've not asked that, but you have a senior advocate who supervises you. So you have, it seems like, the requirements that you could meet the requirements to make your application for exemption from the SQE2. But you are automatically exempted from QWE if you are already qualified as a lawyer. Dependra, hi Ingemar, do you have any thoughts on going down the QWE SQE route as opposed to applying for a period of recognized training exemption and completing the PSC? I think the PSC is to do with the old LPC route, practical skills course. So you're then talking about, do you go down the SQE route? And it is open to you. Now, I should say, first of all, I'm not an expert on the LPC route. I didn't take that when I qualified. It was the system before, because I'm that old. It was Law Society finals. But as I understand it, under the LPC route, yes, the period of recognized training is what people call the training contract. It is possible to apply for an exemption. I don't know how difficult and what the criteria are for that. It might be cheaper for you to do that and to take the PSC, which is a separate training course with an exam, which I think is taken straight afterwards. But I don't know the comparative costing of that, nor your personal circumstances, nor how difficult it is to apply for exemption from the period of recognized training under the LPC route. So I'm sorry, I can't give you detailed advice on that. That's as much information as I can really put into answering that question. Lydia, thank you very much for a very helpful webinar. Do you know about any successful applications for SQE2 exemption from Russian lawyers who are not advocates, but qualified as lawyers? I'm pausing to think because we have helped people, but not everyone tells us what the outcome is. And so I just can't bring to mind, and we don't keep any data on this, but I can't bring to mind anyone who's told us the outcome of an application who was a Russian lawyer who was not an advocate, i.e. just took and passed their law degree, and then made the application for SQE2 exemption. I'm sorry, I don't know of any off the top of my head. Doesn't mean there aren't any, but you are then involved in that more detailed work with the dossier and the cross-referencing and the letter of reference in Section 8 of the SRA's form for applying for exemption. Jim, another question. Is there a requirement for a letter of reference for SQE2 exemption for a foreign qualified lawyer to be recent, i.e. 3 months or sooner? Yes, it is. It needs to be within 3 months of the date when you make the application for the exemption. I didn't go into the detail of that because I feared I was going into too much detail. It's on our website, on that webpage. But there's some guidance that you download. I basically typed up notes after looking at the SRA website and speaking to them. Yes, you're right. You do have that reference letter needs to be dated within 3 months of the application for the exemption. Okay, 3 months before. Maria, okay, thanks. I know it's been quite long for some people. I go on for as long as the questions are there. Ben, thank you. Thanks a lot. Are there any other questions for anyone? From anyone with regard to this? Okay, what I'm going to put in here is I'm going to put my email address in here for anyone who is wanting to message me direct. I'll also put in here a link to the YouTube channel where we've got past versions of this talk. Obviously, the Q&A will be quite different, but the Q&A would also have been split into short little videos in here answering the questions. So you may find something that's specific on questions you might want to ask. As I said again, please, but I encourage you to share that with people and to subscribe. That would be great. I'm just filling a little bit to see if there are any other questions. But as nothing else has come through, I'm going to say thank you to everyone and good luck with your studies and your applications for exemption and such. I will be putting a link on LinkedIn tomorrow morning with the URLs to those screens that I shared here, as well as to give you extra resource and just to wish you good luck, everyone. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care.